Shall we kick into the show proper then?
Yes.
With our Indie of the Week. And this week we're going to be taking a look at Stoessis Heroes. Because they've been up to stuff while we've been away, and they've moved sites as well in some regards.
A little bit, yeah.
What do you mean moved sites? Physical sites or websites?
Possibly both, but definitely websites. We'll get to that in a moment. So this is the old site, which is Stoessis Heroes. These days, if you want to get their stuff, you have to go to the tabletop basement site. Yes, that's if you're in the EU. If you're in the UK, go across to Stuart and Mark at Great Escape Games because they stock the stuff there. So
what? Where do you want me to click?
I don't want you to click anywhere. I'm just telling people.
Just
if you're
stay
in the
here
UK,
for now.
Great Escape Games is the stockist. But if you're in the EU, then go to Tabletop Basement, and this is where all their bits and pieces live these days. So as you can see, broken down by nations, they are a spanking gorgeous range of resin character figures for World War II. They almost lend themselves more to painting and dioramas, but they're great for picking up some unusual characters for your games of Five for Victory, for example.
Yeah, very true. They've all been nicely, I think they've all been nicely scaled quite well to a lot of stuff that you're probably picking up from the likes of like Artisan Design or Foundry or Warlord, for example. Yeah. So if you are looking for characters that match that style of miniature, they do have those. Yeah. Although in some cases they have gone slightly more true, I suppose you'd say.
Weirdly, I think if you look around, there's a prime example there, Mr. Hogan. The more caricatured, the more sort of fitting for bolt action style of figures tend to be the ones that have been plucked from TV and film. So Hogan from Hogan's Heroes is a prime example. They've got some from the longest. They've got quite a few from the longest day.
Yes.
But then when maybe they're leaning into more of the true proportion or true scale things, they tend to be the based on the historical figure that hasn't been portrayed in some sort of film. That looks like Audie Murphy. Is that Audie? I can't see.
No. Eddie Murphy was in Beverly Hills Cop.
Audie.
It's Tony. Tony.
Oh, it's Tony. Okay. Because I know Audi at one point also pulled a 30 cal off the back of a vehicle and used it to repel oncomers.
This guy's got no shoes.
No, he doesn't. It was terrible fighting in the Pacific. I think one of the nice things about the range as a whole, and it's something you'll see in the descriptions of each of the different characters from Stoessis, is that, as Jerry was saying, a lot of these characters have been plucked from real life, and a lot of them have stories that you've never probably heard of.
This is the job you want if you're going to war. Look how much weight he's managed to keep on.
Standing at the back with a map, doing anything he can.
But yeah, so each of the characters has their own little backstory to them, and they've got these really fascinating snippets of sort of history about like what they did, why they were famous, why you should go and learn more about them, why you should throw them into your games. And it doesn't just cover the Allied stuff. Like there's characters from
what would you like to visit next?
Side as well. Do you want to go into the German section? Let's go into the German section.
Go into the German, and if Major Ulrich von Luch is there, I'd like to pick on him. There he is. Is he? That's all very small for me. My eyes don't work.
It's all very far away.
Very far away.
But I think this is what's quite nice about this, is that they've not just explored the Allied stories, but also the Axis ones as well. So you find out about the daring raids, the siege breakers, all that kind of stuff. And you're getting the whole picture of World War II.
Yeah.
rather than it just being allied focus, which I think is really nice.
The whole picture, did they do Escape to Victory as well then?
That is not
the best movie ever made.
No, it is not. How very, very dare you. There he is there.
Where? Which one?
No, I thought I'd said, Von, look, honestly, your screen is so tiny. Your hovercraft is full of eels. And you jump around so much, I can't see where you're at.
Why didn't you put your glasses on?
Because then I can't see.
It goes back and forth. It goes back and forth. But yeah, this was the kind of range that I dived into where I found out about the likes of like Mad Jack, Churchill, and stuff like that, with the longbow kill and running up the beach with a broadsword and all sorts of different things like that. And like, I think there's one of the resistance partisan characters that they do. Nancy Wake. So she's the white mouse at the top there, Lloyd. She's like the Scarlet. Was it Scarlet? The black. She's the Black Widow of World War II, basically. Black Widow mixed with Peggy Carter, let's say, but in real life, she underwent all sorts of like interrogations. She saved airmen from the clutches of the Nazis. She was the most wanted person, all that kind of stuff. And I wouldn't have known about her if it hadn't been for looking into the range and exploring what Stoessis had to offer. And then you come up with really cool ideas for what you could do with her scenario-wise. So, I mean, there are resistance rules, obviously, in 5 Victory, or 0 to 100, of course, yeah. So if you wanted to throw them into those games, play something small scale and play around with that would be really nice. And yeah, so it's a really nice little kind of hobby jumping off point, I think, Stoessis, for you to not only like add to an existing force, but get thinking scenario-wise, gameplay-wise as well.
I take it they're still expanding this bit out because they just have the 3 at the minute, by the looks of it. Is that right? So
Stoessis were around for like a very long time. I mean, we talked about these guys back in, I think it was 2002, I think, maybe even a little earlier than that as an indie, but they kind of, obviously things events in the world.
The event.
And Stoessi have only just come back towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, where they developed these deals with the likes of Tabletop Basement and Great Escape Games and stuff to sell their miniatures and things. But they are now working on bringing them back out and looking at more characters and stuff. So it is a range that is, fingers crossed, going to continue to expand. So
they have different options in it, but really the US seemed to be quite fleshed out. What was Britain like? Did we click Britain yet?
I have no idea what you've clicked on.
There you go.
The British and the Americans seem to be relatively fleshed out, and the Germans. Other than that, the others just have a few characters here or there.
Yeah, I think again, it's because a lot of the stories you hear are from the big major powers, and so that's where you're going to draw a lot of those narratives from. But hopefully, as they get deeper and deeper into this, they'll be able to get people on board who will tell maybe some of the stories of different characters from smaller nations that were fighting, and maybe give them some breathing space to tell their stories. So on the tabletop,
for fans of the SAS, there's a couple of great ones. Which, I mean, a few years ago, I'm sure there were quite a few people who wouldn't have known their names. But then there's been that TV show
that
what the kids watch.
Yeah.
So
I still need to watch that. Yeah.
Yeah. But
is there season 2 out yet?
No, not yet. No.
Couldn't even tell you season 1 was out. John Howard. There's a really nice set, and again, these are, I'm pretty sure that's Sean Connery. There's a really nice set there of Frost and Carlyle from A Bridge Too Far, based on Tony Hopkins.
Is this on this page?
It is. That's the ones. So anybody who's seen that,
yes, they're exactly like them. Yeah.
Carlyle, not a real person.
Okay.
But he was there were a couple of different officers that they sort of merged together for the movie.
Right.
So one did always carry an umbrella. And the other one was Frost's, I think, adjutant.
Brilliant.
But yeah, really, really gorgeous sculpts.
They really are. Yeah.
Devil's Brigade.
I wonder who they could be.
Yeah. Could be anybody at all. You just don't know.
I quite like the idea of using some of those to represent maybe characters in slightly more pulpy settings as well. So use them for like, maybe, well, Project Reza, Escape from Stalingrad Z, that kind of stuff. Throw them into those kind of games. Conflict 47, of course, which is getting a resurgence later this year. Maybe throw especially some of the Hollywood style characters in there. And,
yeah.
That could be really
There's
fun.
a load of stuff. And if people want to have John Wayne on a cart, then you too can have John Wayne on a cart. And isn't that the most important thing of all?
Yeah.
Watching him being wheeled around.
We've got a couple of specific links. Here's one to Mad Jack.
Yeah, so this was one I was mentioning earlier. He's the guy who decided that no soldier should be going into war without a sword by his side, and was the and bagpipes.
And bagpipes.
Was the last recorded kill in battle with a longbow, apparently, as well.
This is a ridiculous.
I believe he's also the guy who there was a wonderful story. He was on a train after the war. On the train, he would go home from work, and he'd always open the window and he'd throw his briefcase out of the window halfway there, and this guy would watch him do it constantly every day, and then eventually he was plucked up the courage to ask him why he was doing it, and it was like, oh, so I don't have to carry my briefcase, I just throw it into my garden. And then he picked it up later. So
genius.
There we go. Yeah.
I might be wrong, but I think he was a POW. He was caught, and because his surname was Churchill, they thought he may have been related to Winston, and therefore he got bumped up and put into like nice officers' quarters instead of being in with the Dungers. So, it's not who you are, it's who you know.
Exactly.
Type of thing.
And we've got Rudolph linked to specifically as well.
Yeah, not with the red nose though. No. But so this was the guy who captured Eben Emael, the Belgian fortress. So again, and this is obviously from the Axis side of things. But again, it's fascinating looking at what he was able to achieve and what he did and why he was rewarded for certain actions and stuff like that. And then again, it makes you think about scenarios that you could play with him. So maybe you do play out that capture of the fortress and stuff. I think it's quite nice. So,
he looks like he's wearing diapers.
He's wearing a Fallschirmjäger jumpsuit.
Yeah.
Which look like diapers.
Could be. But when you're barreling towards the ground, you want to make sure you're as insulated as possible. That's down true. There in the nethers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can't bring you anywhere.
But yeah,
absolutely
very cool
shocking.
Characters.
Overall. Yeah. Fun. They're a fascinating selection from the real world stories of them, and then the archetypical characters from TV and movie. So having people like Coffee Pot there on his horse is great. The first German soldier to see the Allied powers in the Longest Day film, and that's a really nice because I don't even know if he's credited.
Which one's Coffee? I got him. I found him
in the actual film. He may even be credited as Coffee Pot, but people have referred to him as that because he's dandering back on his horse when he sees them coming snowing in there. So having them, having Hogan's heroes, having the characters from the movies, which a lot of us grew up with, they're absolutely stonking. Is really nice. But then also, like you say, finding the interesting and niche stories of some of the combatants and ones that you don't hear about so much. I don't know if Von Luck is on that German page. I know he's in the old Stoessis site, so maybe he's not come across yet. He is one of the most fascinating German tank commanders, and nobody ever really talks about him. They keep going on about Carius, who's great, obviously. Wittmann, he was a plum. But that's true. Rommel obviously gets all the plaudits. But Von Luck served from the start of the war. He was in the invasion of Poland, France, Eastern Front. He was at Smolensk during the winter counteroffensive. He was then pulled to North Africa to lead the recon team for Rommel. He was there all the way back to Tripoli when he was pulled back to Germany, and then he was reassigned to the Panzer. Should have been their commander, and then somebody in high command decided, you're not famous and nice enough, and people back home don't like you. We're going to make you second in command to I was going to swear there, to a gentleman who was not up to the task. And so when D-Day happened, he was sitting there going, are we not going to defend ourselves? No. And the officer's going, no, we've been told to stay here. And eventually he just took matters into his own hands and went and persuaded some tanks to get into the fight via the medium of his Luger. And then he commandeered Panzer IV of his own and went off.
Wow.
He survived the war. He only died 10 years ago in 1996, 97, something like that, because the 90s were all 10 years ago. We know this. But after the war, subsequent to the war, when he was repatriated back to Germany after being in a gulag somewhere, he ended up doing stuff with the British military. So he would be, he came across and would give speeches at officer training, tours and war museum type stuff as well. Became friends with people who he'd fought against on the Allied side. Fascinating character, really interesting. Every theater bar the Pacific he was in, and yet
that's crazy.
Nobody really knows him. They all talk about, well, I suppose probably because he was bucking around the place in a Panzer IV, not spinning around in a Tiger. If you'd been in a Tiger, everybody would just know his name. I think that's how that one goes.
Yeah,
Tigers flash. There they are. Anyway, so yes, really it's worth having a look at the range for, like you say, characters to lead your forces, or maybe just painting projects. Some of those would be perfect for little modeling dioramas, especially Frost and Carlisle. Oh, we can't possibly accept your surrender. We don't have enough room.
So, to remind people where they go to buy these things, then
in the EU, tabletop basement, and in the UK, check out Great Escape Games.
So there's no point going to Stoessis Hero's own website anymore?
No, it's just an archive now, I believe.
Although they do have blog posts there where they show off images of the characters from the movies and photography from World War II.
Real
so
life,
if you want to see what they're based on and see where they've taken their references from, you can find it as part of that blog over there.
Oh yeah, it's still a great archive. Hopefully it'll stay up for a good long time as well.
Fingers crossed.
Right. Shall we move on and take a look at some news?